Good morning, everybody. I hope you all are doing great. So, I warmly welcome you all to another session with me at Bridge Gap Academy. Today, we are going to discuss about collection of data. What are the ways, what are the sources from which a data is collected in statistics in order to reach a research problem, to get a solution for the research problem? What is the importance of data and what are the sources of it? Let's get started. Data is a tool which helps in reaching a sound conclusion by providing information therefore. So it is the first and most important step. It is the beginning for any statistical investigation. We have to gather the data from relevant sources in order to reach to a particular outcome. Now, what are the sources from which we can gather the data? So the data sources are further divided into two parts, that is primary sources and secondary sources. Let us have a look at each sources. Primary data. What is primary data? Data originally collected in the process of investigation are known as primary data. When we are collecting the data originally, that data is primary data. This is the original form of data which are collected for the first time. It is collected directly from its origin, from the source of its origin. For example, during COVID times, suppose if I wanted to know how many COVID patients are there in a particular city, then I'm doing an investigation personally. I'm appointing employees for that who are going each one's house and taking the information that how many people stay in this particular house, is any member having COVID. So collecting the information directly, this information will be known as primary data. This data which will be collected originally, then it is called the primary data. What are the methods from which we can collect the primary data? First is personal interview or direct personal investigation. Yes, like I'm going to each one's house and inquiring from them. I'm personally investigating it. Then mailing. Maybe a questionnaire surveys are sent through mails in which people can just fill up the forms and revert to us. So that is also one of the ways in which data is collected. Telephonic interviews. Of course, I can call everybody and collect the information from them. Indirect verbal investigation. Maybe I'm not going directly to each one's house, but maybe I'm taking the information from building's security officer, maybe like that. So that is not directly contacting with everybody, but indirectly I'm taking their information only. Information from the local sources. And enumerator method. In this method, like there are places, there are towns, there are villages where people are not literate, they are illiterate, so everybody is not having the mailing facility. So in this, each one is like the example I gave you, visiting everybody's houses and investigating from them individually. That is the enumerator method. Alright, I hope this is very much clear to you all. Okay. What is secondary data? It refers to the collection of data by some agency which already collected and processed the data, and the data thus collected is called secondary data. Suppose if I have a medical factory, okay, I make medicines in my factory. So the data of how many corona patients are there is already there in government publications. So I just pick up the data from there and I supply my medicines to those places where COVID patients are more, and I supply more medicines over there, and I'll be supplying less medicines to those places where COVID patients are less. So in order to know where shall I supply my COVID medicines, I'm already taking a data from secondary source, that is from government publications, because government is giving me the exact numbers of how many COVID patients are there in particular state or in particular city. So I can decide my supply on the basis of that. So I'm not originally going and collecting the COVID patients data. I'm already having that data. I'm only using it and evaluating according to my needs. Okay. So what are the sources of secondary data? First are the published sources, then comes the unpublished sources. In published sources, there are government publications, there are semi-government publications, there are reports of committees and commissions, there are private publications like journals and newspaper research institute and publication of trade association, and then there are international publications as well. And what are the unpublished sources? The statistical data is not always being published. There are some data that is not always published. It need not be published all the time. There are various sources of unpublished statistical material, such as records maintained by private firms, business enterprises, scholars, research workers, etc. For example, if I'll give you an example of Facebook. Facebook knows everything what we are doing. How can we see certain ads that we are interested in on Facebook? How can we see that? Have you ever wondered that? Yes, because Facebook is aware of our interests. So they wants to show their ads to the people interested in that. Facebook uses that particular data and then selects that particular group. Suppose if I want to resell a Korean jewelry. So for that, people who are interested in jewelry, Facebook will target those people. Then people in my origin, Facebook has all the data, so those people are targeted, and then hence Facebook chooses it like that. So you are always able to see what you like, because this is the way it is done. The data is collected by Facebook. Facebook is doing the primary data part, and when we are having a look at the ad, the company doing the ad is using the secondary data for the same. Then comes the other sources, like from the website. I'm doing some research from the website. I can take out any information of what is happening and all. So from the website also we can collect the data. Now, coming on the comparisons of primary data and secondary data. What are the bases of comparison? First, meaning. Meaning is very clear to you all. Primary data refers to the first-hand data gathered by the researcher himself, and secondary data means data collected by someone else earlier. Okay. The primary data is real-time data and secondary data is the past data. The primary data, whenever I have a research problem, that time only I'll be collecting that primary data. So that is the real-time data. And if I'm looking for something of which I think I can use the data already provided, then that is the past data. Process, it is very involved process, and secondary data is quick and easy, because in primary you have to do the research from step 1, whereas in secondary you can already just pick up the data and analyze according to your needs. What are the sources? Like we discussed, surveys, observations, experiment, questionnaire, personal interview, etc. And for secondary data, the government publications, websites, books, etc. Cost effectiveness, primary data is quite expensive because it is done from the step 1. You have to do everything. And secondary data is economical because you just have the source, you can just take the data and use it. Collection time is of course longer in primary data, and secondary data is quick, short. Specific. See, always in primary data, it is always specific to researchers' needs. Whatever I want to search, it is very specific to that only. Okay. And secondary data may not be specific. Like I gave you the example of my medical factory. If I am producing medicines, so that is not specifically I am taking that data, how many what is the COVID medicines requirement in this particular. I am just looking at the COVID patients, how many patients are there, and according to that I am evaluating and judging what is my what I have to do further. So that may not be specific. Okay. Accuracy and reliability, of course primary data is more reliable, whereas secondary data is relatively less reliable, because primary data is gathered by researcher himself and it is very much involved in the process, whereas secondary is not that much involved. Okay, so I hope these two methods are very much clear to you all. Okay, what are the key points which we need to keep in mind while drafting a questionnaire? Like we discussed earlier, what is questionnaire? Questionnaire, when we send You might have also seen on YouTube many times you get a survey where you have to tick the whatever you want to choose. You're given 4 options, so that is how it is. The questionnaire is also that you're giving options and you have to take whatever you prefer, whatever your preference is. So introduction and purpose of investigation. In the questionnaire it has to be mentioned what is the purpose of this investigation, what is the reason why you are giving this questionnaire. Reasonable number questions. Of course you cannot make it a very lengthy questionnaire, you have to give very reasonable questions, otherwise nobody will be interested in filling it. Question should be small and clear. Questions should be arranged logically. Instructions should be clear. Proper space for answer, like if you have any other options, like you want to comment on that particular thing, so you should be given proper space for the same. Question should be relevant to the investigation, whatever your purpose is, so it should be related to that only. Avoid questions of calculations, of course the calculations questions, because that withdraws the interest of who is filing the questionnaire. So the interest is withdrawn if you'll give very lengthy or you'll give calculations in the questionnaire, so the interest will be withdrawn. Cross verification. The questions should not use double negative like don't you, so it should not be like that, and the question should not indicate alternative answers. Okay, it should not indicate that you could give an alternative answer for the same. Now coming on to pilot survey. What is pilot survey? What do you mean by it? See, before sending the questionnaire to the information, it should be pre-tested. Okay, as a result of its shortcoming, if any, can be removed. Suppose if I want to send the questionnaire, but before that if I'll just do a pre-test of it, so I'll be very much clear that what are the shortcomings on what are the questions that needs to be changed or to molded in such a way that it becomes more convenient. Such pre-testing is named as pilot survey. So it is the preliminary survey which is used to gather information before conducting a survey on larger scale. So smaller groups are taken and then they are tested at the survey on before go on to the larger section, so that we could just take out the shortcomings whatever if any is there in the particular questionnaire. And it is very efficient way because you don't waste lot of time, because you know that the questionnaire you have sent has already been pilot surveyed and it is very much definite, so it is what you're doing on that. Okay, now in statistics, what do you mean by population or universe? So in statistics, population or universe simply refers to aggregate of items to be studied for an investigation. For example, if I'm investigating on one group particularly, so for statistical purpose, this will be known as population or universe. And what is sample? A group of items which are taken from population for investigation and representative of all items is sample. Suppose if I want to investigate something for class 12th, so if I want to know what is the average height in class 12th, so instead of taking each one's height, what I do is I just randomly pick up some people and invest and take out the average according to them. Then I can say the average height in class 12th is this. So I'm not taking the whole everybody, I'm not taking the whole population, I'm just picking up people for that investigation. Okay, that is sample. Now there are two types of surveys that are done. One is census survey, other one is sample survey. So what is census survey? In this method, every element of population is included in the investigation. Like I gave you the example that if I want to know what is the average height of the students in class 12th, so in census survey what I'll be doing is I'll be measuring height of each and every person in class 12th, and on the basis of that I will be giving my judgment. Okay, I will be coming to a solution. But in the sample survey, like I told you, I'll be picking up few children and on the basis of their height I'll be taking out the average of the whole class 12's height. What will be the average? So in census you pick up the whole population, and here you pick up from particular group you pick up some few people and you investigate the whole population based on those few samples. So let us see the basis for comparison between census and sampling. First is the meaning. A systematic method that collects and records the data about the members of population is called census. It is a systematic method because it is collecting each and every clear data. It is not out of any samples, okay? And in sampling refers to a portion of population selected to represent the entire group. So here there is a portion which is selected and that will be representing the entire group. Enumeration, it is a complete enumeration, and sampling, it is partial study of each and every unit of population in census and only a handful of units of the population. Time required. Of course, census is quite time consuming, whereas sample is a fast process. Cost, of course, census is an expensive method because it is studying every unit of the population, whereas sample is an economical method. Result, this is reliable and accurate census, but sampling is less reliable than census because there can be margin of errors in the data collected. Error are not present in census. Sampling, of course, depends on the size of population. If you have taken a very small size and you are judging on the basis of that, then that is not done. Maybe if you are taking a larger sample, then it will increase the accuracy. Appropriate for population of heterogeneous nature. Suppose the population is of a very different nature, then you have to the census is appropriate for the same. But if the population has a homogeneous similar nature, then you can opt for sampling. So I hope you have got these terms very much clear, and I hope you have understood it very clearly. In order to know more about it, in order to further study about it, you can enroll for my course at Bridge Gap Academy. Thank you for watching this video.